Welcome to the Heart of Me on YouTube page, and another one of the occasional series of videos from independent artists. I'm making a film about Jeff Minter, who is the last independent video game developer from the 80s. There's obviously lots of video game developers now, but I think there's the story, the struggle of the independent artist is something that's fascinating to me. I think that if we can share our stories as artists, maybe there's something we can learn from each other. And to that end, I reached out to Frank Pavich, the director of JODOROWSKY'S Dune, a project that it was my great privilege to work on, to get Frank's perspective on making an independent film that had the legs to reach shortlisted for the Oscars. You know, that doesn't happen every day. So hopefully there's something to be learned from Frank's story. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good. What I wanted to ask How are you? My God.
It's been a very long time.
Yeah, it's been forever since.
Oh, I mean, it's got to be since Toronto. I don't think I've seen you since.
Toronto. Right. Yeah. Right. Fuck. Wow.
But anyway, I mean, the notion is, I don't know. I'm just trying to. What I wanted to do with the film was like demystify the process of video game creation. I'm not sure it does that, but also the mission for the social media was to demystify the filmmaking process.
Okay.
And through that, it's become like this interesting conversation with other artists. And it just seems to get worse and worse. Like there's this huge sea of people who want to make stuff, and there's this huge audience that want to get stuff, and there's this bottleneck of middlemen who are choking up the supply and racking up, like just making it more and more difficult to get stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about your process for JODOROWSKY'S Dune. Is what we have in common. It was a massive turning point in my career. It was a story.
In mine too.
It's the first time I got to work on a project where I wanted to see the story in the world. It was like it was one of those things. I'm sure I told you before, but what it was, like I think it was Steven Scarlatta, like posted something about it, or it's a press release on Twitter, and I went, "Oh, that sounds great." And in that point in my career, I was just basically reaching out to anybody, saying like, "Hey, can I help?"
Right.
And
yes, you can.
Steven,
yes.
At the time, Steven thought, "Not right now. We're still filming, but get in touch in a year." So I did, and he put me in touch with you. And I'm like, "I just want to do some animation or something." Yeah, whatever. And he was like, "Well, actually, I need help editing it."
Yeah. Why not? Dive in. Yeah. Because we don't know what the hell we're doing. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're a filmmaker. And my understanding was you just tell me, how did you get into filmmaking? Frank Pavich.
How did I get into filmmaking? I'll tell you that I always wanted to do something, I guess, in movies or TV or, I didn't exactly know what, but that was, maybe that's because all I did was watch movies and TV. So what else would I want to do? I'd want to do something in the field where my interest lies, but what, I don't know. And I remember, I don't know if I was in high school. I don't know if I was a junior or a senior, but a friend of mine who was a year older, who ended up going to NYU Film School. I was in his apartment one day, and he was showing me some stuff he was doing for an editing class, like a video editing class. And he had taken pieces. It's very of its time, he had taken pieces of Taxi Driver, which I had never seen. I was like, what's Taxi Driver? Like, I didn't know anything. And he was just, he kind of re-edited these things, and it was sort of mind-blowing that you could, what editing is and how that all worked. And then it went further, because then we were watching parts of the film, and there's things in the film which I thought that he had done in his edit. Like, there's one part, I don't know if you know Taxi Driver that well, but there's one part where there's like 3 shots in a row of traffic lights passing by. It's like he's driving, and it's like once, twice, 3 times. And I thought, oh, okay, my friend did that. But no, that's in the film, which was also sort of mind-blowing. Like, what crazy kind of, you can do anything in movies, basically. That was my takeaway from that, from that afternoon. And then after that, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to film school, and I wanted to, really work in movies. And at first I was interested in editing, and then I tried that, and that is way, way, way too difficult. That is something, especially back then, when there was like a pre-digital world.
Right.
There was no. Now it's just normal non-linear editing. I remember the first time I heard the term non-linear editing, and it took me like 6 months to understand what the hell the concept was. Because I'm sure you were the same. You would make mixtapes for your friends, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, okay, you put on the first song, the second song, the third song. Oh, you want to change the second one? Well, then you've got to change the third one too, because you've got to go back and re-record over everything. But then this, non-linear editing comes out where you can take out the middle and slide things around and do all these things that didn't exist in our, typewriter, in our typewriter world. So I went to film school for a little while in New York. I went to School of Visual Arts, which was a 4-year program, but I only lasted 1 year because it wasn't for me. I knew that I would graduate 4 years later with, really only having the skill of like pointing my video camera at a TV monitor and getting feedback. Like, what else was I going to get there? So I packed up and went to Los Angeles, and I ended up in a film school there, which was the polar opposite of SVA, of the School of Visual Arts. It was like almost like a technical school. Like you would, graduate and get your free set of tools, like an Apex Tech, essentially. So I left there after a year, but I didn't leave alone. I left with I think there was 15 of us left, and we took a teacher with us. And we got a loft in downtown LA. We basically hired other teachers, and we compressed 4 years of film school learning into 1 year, and made short films and learned how to, we had a screenwriting teacher and a cinematography teacher and an acting teacher and all that kind of stuff. And we kind of taught ourselves. And then the school died after that 1 year because we didn't have anybody else who could come in and sort of, any other students to come in after us. But it was a great experience,
Wow.
It was great. So then I just kind of started either volunteering on stuff. I would volunteer on like AFI thesis films in LA, which were like miniature features, essentially. Like they were like short films, but
fully crewed up kind of thing.
Fully crewed up. Like I worked on a short film. It took 3 weeks to shoot. 3 weeks. I mean, it was full on professionals who would come and just donate their time in order to kind of network with the next generation of, of people that were coming out of AFI. So I did that for a while, and and I just kind of kept working, and and then eventually made. I'd made a film before Jodorowsky's Dune.
Right. The hardcore one, right?
Yeah, it was called NYHC, New York Hardcore,
NYHC.
And that was like, didn't know what the heck I was doing, but it was, it didn't really have, I didn't really have lofty goals, I would say. It was really about documenting something, it's this music scene that's always evolving. It's, it's very volatile, and bands are breaking up every day and switching members and all that stuff. And I just kind of wanted to go and capture one summer of that in New York. And that one summer took 4 years to edit because I didn't know, again, what I was doing. But yeah, and then 10 years or more. 15 years later, I guess we met on Jodorowsky's Dune. So, it's a long road for me anyway, between.
No doubt. I mean, so Jodorowsky's Dune, what little I seem to understand about it, so there was a larger project in development about films that didn't get made.
There was, Steve Scarlatta, who was the my producing partner on Jodorowsky's Dune. He and I, we talked for quite a while about this idea of films that had never been made. Would that be a series? Would that be, would that be one film of about many things? What would it be? And, when you look at all those what ifs, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, or, Tom Selleck as Indiana Jones, and all these different kind of alternate universe things, the one that always stood out the most was Jodorowsky's Dune. I mean, it was like, it's the most interesting director, it's the most interesting project, and it was such an interesting time, in the 70s, pre-Star Wars, to have all that happen.
Oh, yeah.
So, we had this idea, and okay, how are we going to make that? And it's not like either one of us knew Jodorowsky. It wasn't like we have any connection, Steve was living in LA. I was living in either LA or New York at the time. I don't remember. And so eventually I just kind of, did lots of searching online and found Jodorowsky's email address. And actually I found the email address of his supposed agent. This woman who claimed that she represented him as an actor, I think is what it was. Everything was in French on the website. I couldn't understand anything anyway. But I sent this message, is it true that you represent Alejandro Jodorowsky? If so, I'd love to speak with him about this project, about Dune. And must have been a couple months later, if not, a couple weeks, if not a couple months, and I got an email back from Alejandro himself. And I didn't want to open it because it could have been. It could have been like a rejection letter, for like a university or something.
It's Schrödinger's email. It's not a rejection or an acceptance until you read it.
Exactly. Yes, exactly correct. So I wanted to be in that fantasy world. So I walked around for like a week, like, oh, I'm going to make this movie. My friend Alejandro emailed me. It's great. And then after a week, I was like, okay, I got to be a big boy and open up the email, and it was basically like he was like, oh, I hear you're looking for me. If you want to speak about this, you need to come to Paris and we need to meet. And then I ended up at some point visiting my girlfriend, now wife, when she was living in Geneva for a bit. And we were talking, and she's like, you could just get on the train and in 3 hours you're in Paris. Why don't you go meet that guy? So I said, okay. So I started communicating with Alejandro. We set a meeting, and I just jumped on the train. And 3 hours later, I was at his, front door. And that's kind of it. He basically agreed on the spot, thinking apparently that it would never happen.
Yeah, I heard him say that somewhere. It's like, I never thought you guys would finish this.
Yeah. Which is, I guess, how it goes with most,
Oh, yeah. I mean, nobody believes you're going to do it until you do it. It's odd. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he says yes.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take to get you from the green light from Alejandro to running camera in front of him?
Not much, because we did it so cheaply. We did it. We shot it all on a Canon 5D. We had, I think, 2 lights. If one light, maybe 2 lights. We didn't really have anything. And so it was very easy to pack up and go. I had a cinematographer, Dave Cavallo, that I worked with on some crappy reality shows, and we got along well. So I said, hey, you want to come shoot this thing? And he said, okay. There was another sound guy who worked on the show, Damon Cook. I was like, hey, you want to come to Paris for a couple of weeks? We'll go shoot this thing? Sure. And we just kind of went, but we just did it so stripped down and so cheaply that it was doable. You know what I mean?
And was this something that you just like paid for this out of your pocket just to make it happen?
I basically, my wife and I paid, half the budget came from us, and the other half came from a executive producer who was a friend of mine.
Cool.
And I think without him, it never would have happened, because when I told him, oh my God, I've heard from Alejandro, and I went to go meet him, and he's okay to do this, he was like, great, I'll give you some money and go start doing it. And then that gave me the courage to put in, my own money into it, which is a losing, now we've passed 10 years since the film is out. And just a couple of months ago, I finally broke even.
Wow.
And it's not a lot of money. So, as you were saying, as we were talking earlier, and you were saying that there's so many things that are, get stuck in between people that want to make things and people that want to see things. To me, one of the biggest things is distributors. I mean, it's just a monstrous, hideous world. So a lot of people made a lot of money. I mean, the movie wasn't insanely successful, but it did well. You know, it played in theaters. It played on airplanes. It's been played around the world.
I know friends who saw it on airplanes. I don't even know which airline it was on.
Yeah, I don't know anything. I have
apparently
no idea.
That is very lucrative for documentaries. Apparently, I didn't know
somebody. I mean, apparently it's very lucrative for somebody. I don't know who that person is, but you know, so it's yeah. But that's how we did it. It's just you just had to.
I mean, I definitely don't want to talk about that, but let's stick.
But it's just like you and your film. It's like you just have to jump in and.
I mean, I don't know. It's as much work selling the film as it is making the film. Yeah. So I've got another 2 years in front of me of just doing this.
It's brutal.
It's a big really dog and pony show. I mean, I don't know how much. I mean, like I said, I'm digressing a bit. I want to. So let's just get back to Jodorowsky's Dune. So you got this interview, first interview with Alejandro in the can. So is that when you develop a strategy to make the film? I mean,
well, no.
Did you have a plan before you went to see Alejandro?
If not before I went to see him to meet with him, no.
No. But with the camera crew.
Oh yeah, I mean, because it's not like we had to travel. It wasn't like we were all living in New York and we were going to shoot something in New York. We were going to go all the way to Europe. So okay, we better know what we're going to do, and. So we took, I think the first time we went was, 3 weeks. And we did the bulk of the interviews then. We did Alejandro and Michel Sardou and Chris Foss and Giger and Amanda Lear. I mean, we really did the bulk of stuff there on that first trip. And then it was about, coming home and looking at that footage and translating it and subtitling it and trying to, with your help, really trying to break this footage down into, what's a possible story? What do we,
I mean, you were definitely a bit lost in the woods because there was so much material.
Yeah.
So much material. But so getting people to get on board. Once Alejandro was on board, everybody sort of got in line.
Once he was on board, it was really easy. If you're going to make a movie about Jodorowsky's Dune, if you have Jodorowsky in it, then everybody else falls in line, especially because it was, as we came to learn, it was such a positive experience for everybody who worked with him. Chris Foss and Giger and Sardou, these people were like, to have the chance to talk about it was great for them. I remember when I met with Jodo early on, he said, you should make the film. Actually, it was the very first time I met with him. And he said, it's a great idea. I'm on board. Count me in. He said, but there's a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, Michel Sardou, the producer. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, we worked for 2 years to make Dune. He was the producer. I was the director. And then it didn't happen. It collapsed. And Michel Sardou lost a lot of money on that project. And I think that he hates me now. He says, we haven't seen each other in 20 years or something. And I was like, okay, well, let me figure out what to do. So then I went back home, had to research, how do I find this guy, Michel Sardou? I found him, contacted him, set up a meeting, went back to Paris. And I walked into his office. And this is a guy who supposedly hates Alejandro. Apparently Dune is a horrible experience for him. But I walked into his office, and there was, right when you walk in, there was one piece of original Dune artwork. I said, okay. Walk into the conference room where I was going to meet with him. There was another piece of Dune artwork. There was this crazy Holy Mountain poster, which I had never seen before. Everywhere in this guy's office, he was surrounded by these supposedly horrible memories. So obviously, it wasn't such a bad memory. But even in speaking with him, he said, this sounds like a great movie. I'd love to be in it. I'd love to help you. He said, but the problem is that I think Alejandro hates me. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we worked on Dune. I failed him as a producer.
Yes.
We didn't get the movie made. He must think I'm a bad producer and I didn't support him. And I was like, no, Alejandro loves you. He misses you. And it's about, putting these people together. But nobody that's in the film came to it with bad feelings. You know, they all came
great.
to it as with good memories and great experiences, and you know, and a desire to tell the story, which had never really been told before. You know, really. So yeah, it was kind of, you know, once you have Alejandro, it was pretty simple, actually. You know, in that aspect of things. You know,
I mean, that's just a gift.
yeah, yeah. We're lucky. I mean, like, you know, it's.
So,
luck.
I mean, I can just, I have a pretty limited perspective. I was only on the project for 12 weeks or something. We got to,
No.
it feels very short. It was pretty short. But, so, anyway, details notwithstanding, because my memory is terrible.
I thought you were on for like a year or something, at least.
No, it definitely wasn't. No, I was
Wow.
I was broke.
Oh, exactly. And you know the high rates that we paid.
Yeah, at one point I was like I was editing your film and doing 2 other projects, and I think I had a meltdown.
Yeah. Yes, I think you did, actually. Yes. I think I broke you. Yeah.
I was
part of
not
the contributing.
fun to be around for a bit. Anyway, so that's neither here nor there.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, I chose my fate. Because I wanted this project to happen so bad. So we get to a first draft.
Yes.
And I didn't sleep for 36 hours because I was trying to output this thing, and it was like the color was all wrong. But anyway, I got it. We had a screening, and you're watching it, and but people in the room talking. So it's a really great group of people. Dave giving his thing like, this is not edgy enough. I love Dave. He's great. And you sort of sitting there quietly, and then you sort of turn around, and it's like, I know how to fix this. And you didn't tell me what that was, but when I saw the finished version, I went, oh yeah, because you went back and you shot more interviews.
Right.
And it was Jodo and his son.
Yes.
But you had this thing, and it was. I think it was at that point, because I was trying to make my draft. I was trying to make it about like these 2 guys who hadn't talked in 20 years, like meeting, and it wasn't quite there. It was sort of working, but it wasn't really there. Mm-hmm. And you went, oh no, I know what I'm going to do. And you said like, he didn't finish Dune, but Dune existed in this other form, and then this becomes like, so you open up the back end of this film,
Right.
And you do like this wonderful stuff.
Which you're correct. That all happened in the process. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to make, you know, now people talk about the movie, about the documentary, and a lot of people focus on the section of the film towards the end, which is all about the influence. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't the original concept, I don't think, the film, the documentary, it's very uplifting. It's very positive, and here's this story about this supposed failure, and people, when they're done, when they walk out of the theater or turn off their TV or whatever, they feel, at least they tell me that they feel inspired. They feel like ready to go on, and it doesn't, they really take what Jodo says to heart, that it doesn't matter if you fail or not. You've got to try. You've got to try. And if you fail, okay, then you just go another way. You got to go around it. But you've got to try. And that was something that happened during the production. It's like, I can't say here, oh, of course, that's exactly what my plan was with the film. I always saw it as this uplifting thing. No, that came from speaking with Alejandro and from doing the shoots with him. It's all organic. It's like making a documentary. I want to say it's Scorsese. I think he said something like, a scripted film, or a narrative film, we'll call it, it's written beforehand and then you shoot. But a documentary, you shoot and then you write it afterwards. Right. And so it's always surprising because you never know what you're going to get when you're shooting, because anything can happen. And then you've got to piece it all together at the end and take those, thousands of hours of footage, hundreds or thousands of hours of footage, and put them into, 90 minutes, 100 minutes, into something palatable.
I've worked on a number. This is a personal question. I've worked on a number of projects where, like, an editor's got into a first draft, me or somebody else, and then the director sees it and loses their mind. It's like, oh my God, this is horrible. But you seemed okay with it. What was your initial reaction to that first draft, which is, this is quite a distance away from the finished product?
It wasn't, I knew what I was getting into, when we did that first screening. I knew that I wasn't going in there like, hey guys, this is great. Just check it out. Enjoy it. No notes. Just leave your pens down. No, it's like, we were working, and it was like, you were melting away. You were being
So tired.
dissolved by this project, and we just have to screen it. And it's that's what you do it for, because it's there's always going to be opinions, and you're always going to get different perspectives. And even if you don't, even just the act of, you're sitting and you're editing something, you're sitting by yourself, you're working, you think something's good. When you sit back and watch it in a room with other people, it transforms, and you really see what works and you really see what doesn't work. And sometimes people give you notes and ideas in the conversation afterwards, and that helps. But sometimes it's so obvious, to you or to me, the person who's making the movie. It's like, oh, how did I not see this before? Like, what am I, a moron?
It's night and day. It really
Night
is.
and day.
It's like watching a completely different film.
Yeah, but that first screening was, it's, you've got to go into it being honest with yourself, and then asking everybody else to be honest. Like, the worst thing is to go in there and like look for everyone to be patting your back and saying, "Oh, great job." Like, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear what sucks, what doesn't work. It's not going to hurt my feelings, because I don't think that this is finished.
Right.
But tell me, what do you think? So was it painful? Yeah, of course. It's like, I think it's probably a long cut, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, my version of the cut had way more Dan O'Bannon in it. I was like trying to make a Dan O'Bannon film, frankly.
He's amazing. Come on, he's fantastic.
So that all got pared down to a rational length, and yeah, I mean, so I left the project shortly after that. Just for
you just left and didn't look back. You were like, "Oh my god!"
Well, I mean, because I was able to watch a cut later, and I was able to give feedback, and some of those notes were executed, and it was great.
Definitely.
I loved the project, but so Sony got on board fairly early on. I mean, I'm assuming before a final cut, because stuff sort of seemed to shift around.
Well, what's weird? Sony bought it before it screened at Cannes, so they saw it. They saw the Cannes version.
Okay.
We gave it to them ahead of time, but even like, so then the film premieres at Cannes, and that's another example of like sitting in the audience watching the film, and I was like, oh, we got to change this, and we went back and changed it again, and so the version that people saw at Cannes is not the version that was released.
Right.
It had definite changes, some pretty serious changes as far as I remember. So is it really over? Is a film ever finished, or are they just abandoned? I don't know, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I could go and be mixing this project the rest of my life. Because there's so much to it. There's so many,
and there's so many ways it could go. Mm-hmm. The film could be, if you take all that footage and give it to 15 different editors, you're going to get 15 very different films, from the same source material. It's just, you can do anything with it. That's the danger. That's the danger of this nonlinear editing
and it's
world.
this whole aspect of documentary filmmaking as being finding the story. You have to close off possibilities, and that's just the bit, like, but what if,
Yeah, it's really hard. That, like, the whole kill your darlings thing is but that's why we have Blu-rays. So you have the bonus.
Lord. Yeah, a 4 disc set, 20 hours.
Yeah, perfect.
So we touched on distribution earlier. My understanding was it was a negative pickup deal with Sony Classics. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what describe your relationship and how that worked in terms of, for somebody who doesn't know, how does that work?
In my opinion, it doesn't really work. It's I mean. It was a dream. I'm really happy that the film was with Sony. It was something that, it was actually something that Steve Scarlatta and I talked about, years before, and like we would always talk about the movie Crumb, the documentary Crumb, and Terrence Weigoff's movie,
for me.
And it's like, that was like maybe one of the first documentaries that we saw in the theater. It was like this, big thing. We didn't see it on videotape or whatever. We saw it in the theater, and that was a Sony Pictures Classics release with that iconic blue, company card that they have up there, which is like, hasn't changed since like the dawn of time. And to have Jodorowsky's Dune be released by them, and to have that blue company card put on the front was like, to me, that was the ultimate. Like, that was, it raised, to me, it raised the stature of the film, by a tremendous amount. It's really, that's how I saw it. So I'm really glad. Obviously,
and presumably they probably still opened some doors in terms of like coverage at the time.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they have a whole machine. It's really it's this publicity machine, because there's a million films that come out. There's a million festivals, and it's like, how do you get your thing noticed? How do you get your film out there? And that's when that machine comes in handy. How do you get it to be a featured review in the New York Times or in the LA Times? Like, how do you do that? That's what they know how to do, which is great. They also get paid a lot for that, and then the people where the film started with kind of get forgotten, because so many people kind of pile on later and start siphoning off money that it's there's just nothing left.
I mean,
but the movie was out. Look, we saw it at Film Forum in New York. It played for
I got my picture in front of the marquee.
2 months or something insane like that. I mean, it was crazy.
It had a proper theatrical run in the States.
Yeah.
It did really remarkable box office, even for
a
which
little
wasn't
weird.
made by Michael Moore. It did really well.
I mean, it was shortlisted for an Oscar. It was it was crazy. It was a crazy ride. That was a really wild experience. Wild.
Do you have is there a favorite moment out of that period that comes to mind?
A favorite moment? Yeah, I mean, sure. I probably Cannes is the highlight.
They do that thing like the spotlight's on you, like the film ends, and then
I'm so naive that when Jodorowsky's Dune screened there, that was the first film I had ever seen at Cannes. So I didn't know what the procedure was. And it's the first time screening, it's in this ginormous theater, packed. It's just insane. And it was a really big deal, because it was to me, it was like the year of Jodorowsky, because he had also he also came to Cannes with Dance of Reality.
Right.
So his first film in 23 years. So we're there with Jodorowsky's Dune. He's there with that. It just becomes this massive, insane thing. And so the theater is packed, and then movie screens, and when it's done, everybody, there's the standard standing ovation at Cannes. Everything gets a standing ovation. It doesn't really matter, but everyone does. And I just lost it. I just started in my chair, just started weeping, truly weeping, because it was such a long process to make the film, and then it's there, and then you just that thunderous applause. And during the film, people are laughing, they're really into it. People applauded during the film, in certain scenes, oh, Jodo did it, and that was insane. And then when it was over, and I just started weeping, and the spotlight comes on you, and people next to me had to be like, Frank, you got to go up on stage now and talk. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you had to go do a Q&A. I had to fight my way out the aisle and get up on stage and do this, totally unprepared, Q&A there. So that was a highlight. And then, but Jodo wasn't there because his film was playing after. His film was in the next slot. So we were at, 7 o'clock or something. And then Dance of Reality was going to be at 9, and he didn't want to be seen before his premiere. Which totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. I felt heartbroken, but I totally got it. So he saw it at a subsequent screening, a day or two later, and he had never seen it before. So it was in a smaller theater, and it was me, and then Jodo's wife Pascal, and then Jodo, and then Alejandro. So there was a buffer in between us, because I didn't know how he was gonna take the film, and neither did he. And, so the film plays, and I kind of looking out of the corner of my eye the whole time, is he awake? Is he upset? Is he happy? And, during the emotional point, I saw him, wiping tears away from his eyes. And I was like, oh, yes, I made the old man cry. And then when it was over, then, credits finish, and I look over and I say, "So what did you think?" And he just said, "It's perfect."
Wow.
And to me, that was like, to have the subject of the film, somebody who put all of their trust in you. You know what I mean? Like, yes, he can say now, "Oh, I didn't think they would finish it," and that's probably true. But still, I mean, he allowed us into his world to, to speak with him and to tell this really important story of his life, of something that he went through. And to put that trust in us is huge, is huge. And then to have him like it at the end, not to come out and say, "Oh, it's horrible, I look bad," or "This is wrong." He really just said, "Perfect." And to me, that was like,
I mean,
I don't think it gets better than that.
no. I mean, I've already screened Heart of Neon for Jeff. I was like, I really want him and his partner Giles to be on board.
Yeah.
And it's that good feeling. I mean, it's not contractually, I wasn't obliged to do it.
Right.
But I wanted him to know I was treating his story with dignity, and so I was at the Zap Live. It's a retro gaming event in outside of Birmingham last August, and I showed a little clip for the congregation, and we had a Q&A with Jeff, and that was great. And then the next day, I had to get a plane at noon, so I showed it to him like 10 in the morning. Well, I had to catch a cab to get to the airport at noon. So at 10 a.m., sat down, watched the film. It's a 2-hour cut.
Wow.
And it was like, I was anxious, not super anxious. I was more anxious about the previous day when a bunch of strangers watched it. But I was like more aware of like what they were doing, and like sort of like it's first half hour is sort of quiet, and then like they start laughing, and then like the last hour, like Jeff's partner Giles started commentating on what was on the screen, like elaborating on the story, and because Giles was like, I mean, I was okay. As anything Jeff had to worry about, I was prepared to answer. It was Giles. I wanted to make sure Giles is okay, and he loved it. It was great.
Wow.
It was great. I just want to make sure I'm taking their story seriously and giving them the respect they deserve, because it is a heck of a responsibility.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, this is the one chance to tell that story. It's not going to be made again. No one's going to say, "Oh, Paul did an okay job, I'm going to tell this story better." No, this is it. This is going to be the definitive telling of this guy's life, really. I mean, you've got it's a lot of weight on you, so it totally makes sense that you share with him.
And
that's
speaks
great.
to that.
I'm so psyched that he liked it. Oh,
Me
that's
too.
great.
But it speaks to that, I'm in the same boat where like, so I take notes very seriously and measure them. So like that, your desire, the need to like refine it and make sure that it's so the version that Jodorowsky saw is slightly different. You made some key changes. And
Since Cannes, yeah.
And that's because you just, like you said, you got one shot at this, and this is
just
a permanent
you
record
got to
now.
make it right. There's things in it that I wish were different. But looking at it, there's nothing in it that I would change editorially, and there's nothing that I would change based on the reality of the filmmaking, of our filmmaking process, and what we had available to us, budget-wise. Now I say, if I could do this differently, I would have loved to showcase the artwork in a different way and all that. But I mean, it's not reality. We made that movie for like $10. It's not,
Right.
We didn't have a studio shoot and all these fancy things. We shot it on a point and shoot SLR camera. I mean, it's like,
Me too. Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy. So
It's that you just basically answered my next question. But it's do you think? Well, I've got two more things to say. One, do you think this film would even have gotten made? You didn't wait for permission. You just did it. Is there any version of reality where like you would have gone to get money first? Or is that just like is waiting the death of creativity?
For me, it's I don't know if it's the death of creativity, but it's really close. Like I'm trying to put together a film now, and I've got to write all this stuff. I've got to okay, what's the film going to be? Pitch it. I don't know what the fuck the film is going to be. It's a documentary. I don't know. Like,
Right.
I have an idea about certain things, but I don't know. And the more I try to like script these things out and write it, the more it's like sucking something vital out of the process. You know, I kind of just want to go and shoot stuff. And not everything. Let's go shoot for a week or two and then come back and look at that. And then play with that, edit it. Okay, then go shoot some more. Like, that's how I think. And once you get that ball rolling, once you start shooting, okay, now there's no going back. I can sit here and type stuff forever because it's free. But once you start shooting stuff, then the project becomes real. And you can only go forward that way. You can't go backwards. I'm blanking on
That was
part of your question.
That was great. No, the other thing, there was this so that on the special features for Pulp Fiction, there's a bit where like Tarantino points the camera at, or somebody points the camera at Bruce Willis. He's in this car. He's like, we're soon everyone's going to have a camera, and the next Stanley Kubrick or whatever is going to come out of that. That didn't really happen. What we got now is TikTok, but I don't
propaganda.
But both of us made films with a consumer level cameras. Yeah. I mean, the gatekeeper still exists.
Yes,
but we can get to second base at least.
Yeah,
and then because I mean, I don't know. I think there's a show me is a big part of making things happen. I mean, I could pitch this idea of a film about a game designer till I'm blue in the face, but I really had to get something on camera before people will start to see. And even then, it's still a hard uphill struggle. Saying like, no, this is what I'm trying to make. And people are like,
but
really?
that was when we interviewed Richard Stanley for Jodorowsky's Dune. One of the things that he said when you present too much, like, he said he thinks that the fatal flaw in Jodorowsky's approach was storyboarding the entire thing, because you think like, I'm going to give it to somebody and they're going to have less questions. They're going to see it the way I see it. No, the reality is the more you give somebody ahead of time, the more things they have to say no to. And because then their imagination, the greatest movie is the one that you think of in your head. So if I just tell you, hey, Paul, we're going to make this movie, and I just give you kind of the broad strokes, you think that sounds great because what you're thinking is amazing. And what I'm thinking is amazing. But the two are completely different, most likely. But that's the power of it. It's your imagination. And everybody gets excited because, we're all going to go make our collective great thing, which is in reality completely different from each other. Once you write out everything or draw out everything or pre-visualize or however it works today, you're just giving people a chance to say, I don't like that. That should be red, not blue. That person's got to go. This is stupid. Because everyone's an expert. Everybody's a freaking expert. And in reality, nobody is, I'm not, you're not, nobody is. But everybody thinks they are. And that's dangerous, So there is this value, at least to me, to just start it. And, and then, you start shooting something, and then you can have a little thing to show somebody. So they get an idea, but you're not showing them everything. But you're just kind of whetting their appetite. And then they get excited because, again, they're imagining this great thing that it's going to turn into. And that's, I think that's the way to go, for me.
I mean, that's perfect. I think this has been excellent. This has been really fantastic. I've learned more about the project I worked on than I had knew before.
I still can't believe you were at 12 weeks. That's not possible. How did I destroy you in 12 weeks? That is a horrible.
When you commit 100%, you give everything, right?
You did. Even Alex, even Alex Ricciardi, who was the other editor. There's only two editors credited. It's you and him. And even he said, we'd always talk, and he would always say like, wow, Paul really had the hard work. He's like, for me, this is easy because the framework, at least it's a basic framework that's there. He's like, but to start, the hardest thing is to start from nothing. Just to look at these gigabytes or terabytes. Like,
make a story. This thing doesn't have an ending. There's no drama. These guys showed up and didn't make a film. So how do you make that dramatic?
Make it good.
That was a fantastic experience. I mean, I'm really glad you made that story. It was great. And there are very few films that I wanted to see happen, and that was one of them.
But there was an instance before. So I went to go see Jodo. He agreed to it. Spoke to my executive producer friend. Okay, he's going to put in some money. I'm going to put in some money. Okay, great. We're just about set to buy the plane tickets for us all to go to Paris to go shoot. And actually, it was two things. First, I contacted Amanda Lear to see, okay, can we do an interview? And she goes, it's so funny. She goes, I actually, just 2 days ago, I did an interview for a documentary about this subject.
Okay.
I said, what are you talking about? She goes, oh yeah, these French guys came, they contacted me, they came to her home or wherever, and they shot an interview with her about Jodorowsky's Dune. And the next thing they were going to do is they were on their way to go interview Christian Vander from Magma. And I was like, what the hell's going on? So I had to contact Alejandro and be like, do you know anything about this? What is this? And he was surprised. He says, no, he had no idea. I ended up speaking to his assistant at the time, and his assistant remembers that like a year before or more, these guys came, met with Alejandro, and he said, yeah, great. You just start doing your thing and we'll talk later. They took that to heart and started to film interviews.
Oh.
Which is, I mean, to me, it's crazy.
They didn't have his signature on a piece of paper.
They didn't have, but also like they didn't start with him. Like that's just I don't know. Like it just seemed weird. So I had to like contact them, and be like, hey, just so you know, I've got an agreement with Alejandro. We're gonna make this film, blah blah blah. And it kind of like, I'm sure it destroyed them. I would imagine it would have destroyed me. But actually, I think that was the second incident. The first, even before that, I think there was these guys from LA who met with Alejandro, and they told him that they were going to make like a $10 million version of this documentary. They were going to take the storyboards and do them in some sort of CGI and bring the film to life, make it 3D and all this, crazy shit. And so Alejandro was like, hey, well, this sounds good. This sounds like a lot of money. Hey, okay, this sounds like a great idea. Frank, you better hold off. Let's see what these guys have to say. And I was like, look, Alejandro, I'm ready to buy these tickets. We're all excited to do this. We're ready to come in a couple of weeks. And he's like, okay. He goes, let's give them just one more week. We'll see what they come back with. They never came back to him with anything. I think to this day, they never came back. But it's like three incidents at exactly the same time of people who wanted to tell this story.
Right.
So it's like, that just goes to show also, like if you have an idea, you better, jump on it, because there's that theory of simultaneous discovery where, at the moment that you have an idea, what is there, 7 other people that have the exact same moment?
It's spookily true.
And who's going to,
absolutely true.
Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it first? Who's going to get there? Everybody said, I've seen a million things online. Oh, I had this idea to make Jodorowsky's Dune 20 years ago. Like, yeah, I had the idea to make whatever, but it's not reality. Me saying I have an idea isn't reality. But those were 3 people who were making it a reality in the same moment, which is freaky. So,
you won though. You made it happen.
Somehow. Yeah. My God. Terrifying.
Well, Frank Pavich, thank you very much for sharing the story with me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. It was good to catch up with you, my friend. My God, it's been too long.
Always a pleasure. Yes. I'm very excited to see. So what's briefly, because we didn't talk about it here, you have a film that is approaching completion?
I hopefully will have it locked. If not by New Year's, then shortly thereafter. I hope to have a picture lock. So that would be very exciting.
Does it have an official title?
No, I'm the worst person in the world with titles, right? I made the hardcore documentary. I was like, oh, what are we going to call it? Working title, NYHC, New York Hardcore. Never came up with a better title. Let's go make Jodorowsky's Dune. Okay, working title, Jodorowsky's Dune. That's what it's about. Could never come up with a better title. And that was tough because a lot of people can't say the name Jodorowsky.
Really?
So, oh yeah, people just
Wow.
like Jodorowsky. Nobody knows how to say it. Nobody can spell it for sure.
Oh, 'cause
So,
it's 50% of the time I type it wrong. Yeah.
see, Heart of Neon. That's a good title, clean, easy to spell. I predict good things. That's it.
Why, thank you very much,
That's
sir.
it.
Oh, well, I mean, let's stay in touch because I really want to see your next film.
Yes, and me too. Yes, yes. I cannot wait to see the finished version of Heart of Neon. My God. Yeah.
Me neither. Yeah, like that's the same thing. I'm hoping to have a picture lock by January 1st. Maybe a bit longer. I
See,
mean,
we're exactly right in line. That's great. That's a good sign.
That's the goal. Yeah, we're in synchronicity. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's still
I'd say
happening.
so. Yeah, yeah, for sure.